Mike Renner, ready to talk Senior Bowl, baby. We'll be down there in Mobile. We're going to preview position by position, names we like, names we're interested to see, some matchups to look at for sure, and some risers. Maybe some risers as well. We're going to talk some risers at the bottom.
Potential risers.
Potential risers.
We haven't done any. They haven't practiced yet.
Exactly. We'll definitely have a ton of content next week on PFF.com and the podcast. We're going to do 3 podcasts next week, not 2. We're going 3. We might be moving 3 soon after that as well. It's going to be exciting stuff. We're really looking forward to Mobile. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. Let's start with the quarterback position. We're going to go offense, then defense, starting with quarterbacks. Let's go ahead and bring me a little bit here on Anthony Gordon. What's your take on him so far? I feel like all the passing yards, all that stuff in the Washington State offense. I've seen some people liking what he's bringing to the table, but again, I think some of that's Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I'm not his biggest fan. I just don't think that his decision making is nearly on the same level of Gardner Minshew. Now, obviously, can make himself some money with strong performance there, but I haven't seen it quite with him. I think of this quarterback group there, he is clearly in a tier below guys like Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, maybe even Jalen Hurts in my mind in terms of pro prospects.
So let's stay on that top 3 there. I think those are the 3 most important names that are going to be in the quarterback group at the Senior Bowl. Justin Herbert, who's kind of a late declaration. I think he's easily the best quarterback prospect, one of the best prospects that's going to be down there in Mobile. Every team will be looking at Justin Herbert, especially those at the top of the first round looking to bring in a quarterback that's not named Joe Burrow or Tua Tagovailoa. And with Justin Herbert, I think he has a huge opportunity to rise here because if there's one thing Justin Herbert's good at is showing off his arm on air, and I think he's got one of the best arm talent in this class. I think he has a huge opportunity at the Senior Bowl to really blow away some coaches and have them fall in love.
Yeah, I think this reminds me kind of that 2016 quarterback class, I believe it was, when it was, I think, like Cody Kessler down there, a handful of other kind of mid-round guys, and then Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz just looked like he was on another level physically from the rest of the quarterbacks down there. Here, I got the list in front of me now. Jeff Driscoll, Kevin Hogan and Cody Kessler on that North squad. Pretty rough. In terms of the quarterback position, but that's why he stood out and he really made himself some money. I could see that being the case for Justin Herbert in that because so much of it, like you said, is against air. It's not really, you're not seeing blitz packages. You're not seeing a lot of stuff you'll see on Sundays or even on Saturdays. They have to play single high safety looks. It's either cover 1 or cover 3. You know what you're getting, and so you should be able to carve it up. And I think in a situation like that with Justin Herbert, he will by far look the best of the group there, even if the tape shows some issues that were detailed.
Let's talk the other quarterbacks here, too. Jordan Love has been pegged as this back end of the first-round quarterback because of that ceiling he does have. The tools are easy to fall in love with. The high end is very nice. The low end, not so great. You look at him as a prospect that does have a low floor in the NFL. Where are you at right now with Jordan Love, and what opportunity does he have at the Senior Bowl to kind of rise his stock or kind of cement his stock as this back of the first-round player?
I think the biggest thing he can prove is that his technique and his fundamentals are – he's got them down pat a little better than he showed during the regular season this year because he was all over the place with his footwork at times. I think you just saw him get lazy and get sort of trust his arm too much and not step into every throw, and that cost him. I mean, he had a top 5 in terms of turnover-worthy plays in all of college football this past season because of some of that. And so I do think that you'll see with him the biggest thing he can prove is just that that's all cleaned up. He's not throwing off platform. He's not trying to make plays that he just simply can't make. He trusts, if he trusts his arm, trusts his sort of footwork and technique there, that's the biggest thing he can prove to NFL evaluators.
All right, last quarterback I want to bring up here. I know there's some other Steven Montez, Shea Patterson, but of that group, I really need to talk Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts, I think, is this kind of a polarizing player, largely because, and I've been asked this on several radio hits in recent weeks, is that Jalen Hurts, is there an opportunity for him in the NFL now that Lamar Jackson has had this success as a mobile-first type of quarterback? With Jalen Hurts, though, he's not even in the same ballpark of athlete as Lamar Jackson, and he's not even in the same ballpark as a passer. I think he's not just a tier below what Lamar Jackson is, maybe 2 tiers below what Lamar Jackson brings to the table. And with that being said, do you see a role for him in an NFL offense like Greg Roman's potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where he has to go.
Yeah, of course.
That's what he has to do, and I think this setting is not going to be great for him. It's not. He's not going to look good in a one-on-one sort of setting or in this an offense where his legs aren't a weapon. I just don't think he has the accuracy arm strength, that sort of stuff that's going to wow any evaluators. It's just not going to happen. Two of his biggest strengths, his legs and his ability to protect the football, just really aren't going to come out over a setting like this. So I don't think this is going to be great for him, but it's necessary because I do think that NFL evaluators, Jesus, excuse me, are going to be looking and saying, hey, can I fit this guy in my offense if I'm not running? Like you mentioned, like a Greg, if you're not using him as a rushing threat, can he pass? Can he hold his own as a passer? And so if you're someone like, the New England Patriots, can he be a backup to Tom Brady? I don't think he can be, but I'm just saying this is where he could prove that to NFL evaluators.
Let's go ahead and go to the running back position. The quarterback will definitely be interesting. I think Justin Herbert and Jordan Love will draw the most attention. Jalen Hurts right after that. He's an Alabama guy. I think a lot of the fans will be excited to see Jalen Hurts. One thing I'll say on him, and I don't think this can be understated really, is that everywhere I've heard, Dane Brugler brought this up when we had him on the podcast, an awesome dude. Like the character, character evaluation is through the off the charts, really, through the roof with Jalen Hurts. I think that's where he has potential to really wow some coaches and some scouts, the guys who do talk to Jalen Hurts and then start to think about where they can involve him in the offense. All right, let's go to the running back position. This is an unfortunate one because my favorite running back that was going to the Senior Bowl is no longer going. Zach Moss of Utah. He's the highest graded running back in PFF's system, including all running backs at the FBS level that had over 300 offensive snaps this year. Great at forcing missed tackles. Great lateral agility, a guy that I comped to Cadillac Williams on the previous podcast, will no longer be there. And now, looking at this group of running backs, I think names that pop out to me, Eno Benjamin is somewhat of a fun player for Arizona State playing in the Pac-12. I also turned on Darius Anderson's tape of TCU, who I thought had some juice. Where are you at with the running back group here for the Senior Bowl?
So here's the thing. Running back is the least valuable or like the least position that you can glean any information on Senior Bowl.
At the Senior Bowl, yeah.
It's just so difficult to sort of get a feel because, one, you're not tackling, in practices. You're not bringing these guys down. So guys that are elusive or, do win in that sort of manner, you just all of a sudden don't really see it. Now, you can kind of glean their vision. It helps in the running backs versus linebacker one-on-one to some degree. Can a guy catch? But it really – the tape that you get on running backs over the course of their season is far, 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 far more valuable than anything you're going to see the week in Mobile. So of all the positions, running back, not super exciting. But I will say Eno Benjamin is interesting to me because he reminds me a lot of Paul Perkins. But there's a sort of a sliding scale of Paul Perkins to Shady McCoy where some guys who have that sort of the jump cut kings, the guys who will make you miss without even you ever touching them, that's Eno Benjamin. He's going to have missed tackles where you didn't even attempt to really attack because you didn't touch him. He's that kind of player. Didn't work out with Paul Perkins, worked out really well with Sean McCoy. So there's sort of a spectrum there that he falls on. I just want to see him in the one-on-ones actually against linebackers because that, to me, should be where he wins at the next level.
To give you a better idea of this class, too, without Zach Moss there, none of these running backs earned over an 80.0 overall grade in PFF grade this past season. I think of the names that do kind of wow me, I mentioned Darius Anderson, but LaMichael Pirine has an interesting recruiting background. He's related to Samaje Perine, the Oklahoma back who also played in the NFL. He's also cousins with Miles Jack. He's got an interesting athletic background. I think I'm excited to see if he can separate himself in that regard in some of the drills at the Senior Bowl. I think Keyshawn Vaughn, his tape is fun. His tape is fun to watch. To quote our favorite term, they're fun to watch. But he hammers dudes. A very physical guy. I think.
Yeah, hammers. Jesus Christ.
He lowers his shoulder.
He's a one-cut runner. Yes. Keyshawn Vaughn, a very good fit for his own scheme. He was in our top 5 backs heading into the season. He's still in that sort of area. I think he offers a lot. He's very similar to a J.K. Dobbins in that they both have very good vision, both one-cut sort of guys, going to get upfield, get what's blocked, and then a little bit more, but both not crazy dynamic like on the Zach Moss, Travis Etienne, Jonathan Taylor sort of explosiveness skill.
To tie a bow on that, I think running back position, later in the podcast, we're going to talk about our potential risers or guys that we think could elevate themselves. None of the running backs, because one, you can't glean a ton of information from the Senior Bowl, and two, it's not a great group without Zach Moss, and I don't see a lot of them rising.
And also, like, a lot of these positions that you're getting sort of more information on, it's because you don't have big sample sizes to begin with. Whether it's like an offensive tackle who hasn't faced a NFL pass rusher his whole career, or whether it's a wide receiver who hasn't been, who's only targeted 60 times in a year, these running backs get 250 carries. You get a big sample size on running backs. You have a good feel for them and what they've done in college football already. So a lot of these guys, you don't really need more information.
To comment on that too, I had someone ask me, what makes a Senior Bowl valuable? What makes it important to the evaluation process? And the first part of that is these matchups you're able to see for a group of 5 players or players that you don't see a lot of one-on-one interaction with. It's a huge opportunity to see how they do against some of the best competition in the country. And 2, I do still value that opportunity to meet the players and understand the personality and see what
You're
type
big
of guy.
Personality
Dude, do we need to bring up the Jerry Tillery interview? Do we need to bring up? There are
don't
interviews.
Have to bring up Jerry Tillery ever again on this podcast.
There were interviews where you start to feel like, okay, this is somewhat of a red flag in terms of how they approach certain situations. Let's not dive into Jerry Tillery right now. Let's go ahead and move forward to the wide receiver position. I think this is a very interesting group of wide receivers. I think there are a lot of names
good group.
Yeah, there are a lot of names that I really like. I think Michael Pittman Jr. is one of my favorites. I know you're a big fan of Juwan Jennings of Tennessee. Colin Johnson is going to look insane. You can already tell that guy's going to be just bigger than everybody there, 6'6", wherever he's standing with. And I really like James Prochet of SMU. I think he's an interesting player. Where are you at? What were some of the names that you're looking forward to watching at the Senior Bowl?
This is really a loaded group. I think a couple of the biggest names that I'm looking forward to watching is one, Juwan Jennings, because obviously he's a favorite of mine. Went in the first round of my latest mock draft. I think he's that talented, but he also played a lot of the slot in Tennessee. And he's a big dude who I think can play on the outside and can win on the outside, but we just haven't really seen it. So I want to see him. He will get his chance to win there on the outside. And then I'm going to go with Liberty's Antonio Gandy Golden. I remember before the season, when we were doing the preseason draft guide, Cam Malore, our lead college analyst, was like, you should take a look at this guy to put him in the draft guide. And I'm just like, he's not getting in the draft guide. I'm sorry. He does not have good speed down the football field, but at the same time, he led college football, or was second in college football over the last 2 years in terms of deep reception. So he had a lot. Don't think he has great downfield speed. Don't see that being his game at the next level, but sometimes I'm wrong about it. Sometimes guys who don't have great downfield speed can still be weapons down the football field with other things like the body control, how they run routes, how they set up defensive backs, and just being able to stack guys. So we'll see. He'll get his chance here to win deep down the football field against much, much better competition because he only faced a couple Power 5 schools this past year, if I recall correctly.
Well, let's dive into this closely here. Brandon Ayuk of Arizona State. I think he's the guy I see on my timeline a lot. People are kind of falling in love with his production from Arizona State. However, a big opportunity for him, in my opinion, is to see him separate in these one-on-ones on intermediate and deep level routes, because so much of his production is kind of schemed at Arizona State and where he's getting targeted the football. I think Brandon Ayuk has a lot to prove, in my opinion, on how he can separate at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to the risers later. He's my bet for one of the risers in this class because I just think he's so explosive and so explosive in and out of his cuts that I do believe he's going to look good in these one-on-ones, I think.
Where are you with Chase Claypool? Chase Claypool, Notre Dame guy, 6'4", 230 pounds. He's huge. Like, this guy's like a big tight end almost. I don't see him playing wide receiver in the NFL.
So I get accused of being Notre Dame homer, and I swear I'm not, because I was low on Miles Boykin last year coming out of Notre Dame. I was like, even when he was drafted in the third, I didn't see him being that worthy of that high a pick. And Chase Claypool, I don't think is worth a day 2 pick either. I just think he's like a 5th, 6th round type of guy. Like he just does not get open at a high rate, and I don't even think like he's that physical. 230 pounds, you'd think this guy should just be beating up college cornerbacks, and you didn't see it. Like, I didn't see that consistently on his tape, that physical dominance. So, yeah, I'm not super high on Chase Claypool. To me, I've said his best bet is to go the Darren Waller route and just bulk up.
That's not even a bad shot.
All of a sudden, call yourself a tight end. You had 15 pounds, you call yourself a tight end. And
at 10 pounds, he calls himself a tight end. He's already
all of a sudden, you're
230 pounds.
dynamic then at that size.
I got to bring up the name Courtney Davis, because when I turn on the film, there are some routes where you see some of this athletic ability, see some of this speed. He has good releases at the line of scrimmage. I do like his footwork. However, I find myself liking what he's doing, but never seeing him come open. I think there's a chance for him to rise a little bit at the Senior Bowl because he'll have so many opportunities to do some of these one-on-ones. But he needs to show me something at this Senior Bowl if I'm going to really get on board, really.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but he's going to get a 7th UDFA grade in the draft.
I know that's where you're leaning right now.
Did not love his tape whatsoever to speak of. Some guys, if you're not if you're not like explosive enough in a big enough package, that's Jesus. Okay. If you're not like dense enough, some guys just are too skinny to when they get contacted, it like robs them of all their speed. I don't care how fast you are.
Yeah.
Some guys just can't fight through contact like that. To me, that was Courtney Davis's winner.
Let's go into Devin Duvernay, because this is a guy that had a ton of production at Texas. Most of it coming from the slot, free releases. Like we've always said that if Jalen Reagor played that position at Texas, he would have over 2,000 receiving yards or whatever it was. I don't expect this guy to have a good Senior Bowl.
I wouldn't be surprised either. I don't think he's that great of a route runner. To me, the comp I put him in the draft guide was Golden Tate, because he does have very good ball skills. Like he has very good hands. Only a handful of drops his entire college career. I think three drops on 149 catchable passes the last 2 seasons. That's very good. But he did have more catches this year on screens than he had in all of 2018. He had 42 catches on screens this year. That was the most in the country.
That's insane.
That's just an out-of-this-world number. And so when you look at his production through that sort of lens of, he had 105 catches, 42 were screens, and he broke 23 tackles. 14 of those came after screens. It's just a little different, but he does have almost a running back-esque build, and I do think that he is still one, very good at the catch point, and two, very good after the catch. So those two things if you're going to be a slot receiver, those two things to be good at.
All right, we're going to go ahead and touch on one of my guys that I think is going to be a riser. We'll talk about him in detail later, but Antonio Gibson of Memphis. Ooh. This guy's a wide receiver, running back hybrid, similar to what like kind of Tony Pollard was, but he's listed as a running back on the Reese's Senior Bowl website. Yeah. But he played mostly wide receiver at Memphis, played a ton of kick returner there too. He's a very versatile player, 6'2", 220, fast, I think very athletic. I wouldn't call him polished at any position, but he's very good at a lot of positions because of athletic ability. I think he's going to take some snaps at receiver, take some snaps at running back, and they're going to be guys that start to see him in this Tony Pollard role at the next level. I think Antonio Gibson's a fiery guy that could have some success at the Senior Bowl.
I think that's the future. Get a guy who's a wide receiver and has wide receiver skills, and then throw him at running back. Because that's a lot easier to teach than to teach a running back how to catch a football. I
reached out to him and I asked him, like, hey, I see you're listed at running back, even though I don't think he had more than 30 carries than at the running back position at Memphis. I will say this: if you reduce the attempt count, the attempt qualifier, and PFF Ultimate, you'll see that he has the highest forced missed tackles per touch of any running back if you have it at those carry count. And he's a guy that's very dynamic, forces missed tackles after the catch and when handed the football. And when I reached out to him, I said, what are you going to do? He's like, I don't even know, man. I'm going to do a lot of different things. So I think the NFL teams will like him. I need to know where you're at with Van Jefferson. There are guys that are pushing him up to the top of day 2 and stuff like that. Van Jefferson, so I hear this about the LSU tape. Like the LSU tape, I think he had a handful of 2 good slants against Derek Stingley that he set up well with a couple outside releases and back shoulder catches. But you watch the first half of that game, watch all of his routes in the first half of that game before the third quarter drive that really spiked that LSU tape. He looks not good. He's not creating separation. He's struggling against Derek Stingley. I do not see a consistent separator in Van Jefferson.
Yeah, that's the thing is and I think his sort of production overall is indicative of that. 600-something yards this past year was the most he's had in a single season. And yes, he was starting all the way since his redshirt freshman year back at Ole Miss, and he put up more yards than DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown that year, who were true freshmen at Ole Miss. But I think there's also a reason why he transfers, because he didn't really improve upon that. To me, he doesn't necessarily vary the speed of his routes well. Like he is, if he's running down the football field, it's 100%, and then he breaks on his route, and there's no real sort of feel for how he's setting up those downfield routes. And that, if you're just sprinting down the football field, all of a sudden the cornerback's going to be sprinting down the football field with you. If you're not varying your speed, you're not really selling the route. So I do think that was a big thing with him. And then he also is another guy who's old, already 23 years old, going to be 24 before his rookie season, but he's not strong. And if you're already old and not strong, it's a bad combination to have, because you had 5 years now in college weight room, and you couldn't put on enough to be like, to be probably should be at his size 6'2". He should probably be about 210. You'd like a receiver to be at that size, and he's not. So that's concerning to me. And
I've watched more of his tape beyond that LSU game, and I still run into those same issues where you're looking at a guy that there's a couple routes a game where you like what he's done, but it's so inconsistent. Like those wide receiver wins against press man or one-on-one coverage is so inconsistent that I find it hard to really get on board with Van Jefferson.
To me, he's day 3 guy.
Yeah.
At this point.
All right. 2 more receivers I want to touch on before we go to the tight end position. Kalijah Lipscomb, before the season, I kind of like went head over heels because you see that there's this one reception he has in 2018 where he takes it on a screen and makes like 3 or 4 dudes miss on the same play. And I'm like, oh man, this guy is fantastic after the catch. Then you go watch Kalijah Lipscomb against Derek Stingley against LSU. Oh my gosh, dude can't create separation to save his life. It was a very, very bad tape, and you saw that all throughout this 2019 season. I do not see Kalijah Lipscomb as a guy that creates separation deep down the football field, and therefore I do not see him as a super valuable receiver in the NFL, unfortunately.
He's a late rounder.
Will he have some splash plays at the Senior Bowl? I'll say yes, though. I think he will have some splash plays at the Senior Bowl.
I'm going to say no.
Beat on a corner or two. I think he ends up on one of those one-on-one.
I think the next guy's got a better chance some splash plays.
Oh yeah, well Denzel Mims. The last guy we'll touch on here. Denzel Mims, a strider, limited route tree. He doesn't, his change of direction isn't fantastic, but he can get on dudes, and I think he wins at the line of scrimmage pretty well. I think straight line, Denzel Mims is a fantastic player.
Yeah, straight line and then up in the air.
Yes.
The dude can fly.
Oh man, the ball skills are good too.
Yeah, he can get over the top of cornerbacks, but he's that sort of. The comp I had for him in the draft guy is Braylon Edwards.
Oh, wow.
He'll make that spectacular catch, but then he had like 11 drops last year.
Yes.
7 more this year. He'll drop the easy ones, which some guys just are like that. Like some guys can make a circus catch with ease and then put one in his chest and he doesn't know what to do with it. That to me is Denzel Mims. And then you mentioned the limited route tree is also the biggest thing. I need to see him run a little more varied, a little more nuanced routes here at the Senior Bowl to get on board with him any higher than 3rd round at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the tight end position. It's overall not a very strong tight end class, and the Senior Bowl is kind of indicative of that. There's not a ton of great Senior Bowl talent at the tight end position. I think the favorite for you, I know, is Jared Pinkney, but man, does this have something to prove at the Senior Bowl? Because this production in his senior season was flat out bad.
I would say, what production? There wasn't any, dude. It didn't happen with him, but he had over 800 yards the season prior, back in 2018. Had some really big games that year. That tape didn't just disappear. We can still go back and watch that and evaluate him. And I do think that that's far more indicative of his skill set than what we saw from him this season. And I think he'll have himself. He's on my pick for one of the risers here later on.
Drop your comp.
Drop my comp. Antonio Gates.
I'm sorry.
Maybe like Antonio Gates like 5 years ago, not like Antonio Gates 10 years ago.
I think he's like Antonio Gates 5 years from now. I kind of see a lot of that in Jared Pinkney. 3 other names I want to bring up in this tight end group. I think Harrison Bryant has flashed a lot at FAU. I don't think he's a bad player.
I thought he was very skinny in 2018. Well, I mean, I thought dude was skinny in 2018. I'm not gonna, and then I thought he actually put on a good deal of weight over the course of the offseason to make himself more legit prospect. Didn't actually lose any sort of explosiveness or speed. So that was very encouraging for me to see. I think he's definitely moved his way up my board, our board here at PFF, with his play this past year because he looked far more dynamic, far more. Just had some power to him after the catch. Broke 12 tackles this past season on 65 receptions. Went over 1,000 yards. So he's the most productive tight end in the country this past year. And he definitely has a chance to prove against some real linebackers there.
All right, 2 more names. Let's talk about Josiah DeGuara of Cincinnati. I've had some opportunity to cover the Cincinnati Bearcats a little bit and talk to Josiah DeGuara.
Lay it on me.
Leader. I'll say that first and foremost. He's a big leader in the locker room, commanding presence. This is a guy that brings the offense together. They started Desmond Ridder in 2018. He obviously played in 2019 as well. But DeGuara was the leader, not the quarterback. He was the guy of the offense. And DeGuara, so much production on play action boots. He knows how to find openings in zone. I think he's also pretty good after the catch. A guy that was a low-star recruit that goes to Cincinnati and has good production, in my opinion, in the AAC. I think he's a potential riser, not a riser to day 2 or this crazy, because he's not a crazy athlete, but I think he's a riser in how he'll impress scouts and what they can do. They see they can do with him on these play action passes and stuff. And that's what so much of the tight end position is. Find a guy that if you do put him in this role of play action boots, flats, and things like that, that can do something after the catch, you can start to get around him. I think DeGuara is one of those.
Yeah, I do think he's very hard-nosed and very much a tight end that you'll tight end coaches will love because he's all effort. Not nearly as talented as probably the next guy we're going to mention here as an athlete, but he works his ass off.
Yeah, when you talk to the San Francisco 49ers tight end coach, who I had the opportunity to speak with a little bit through Solomon Wilcots and John Embry, who's coached obviously George Kittle. He's coached others in the past, some bigger names. They're not coming to me right now. Mercedes Lewis at UCLA. He's saying one of the bigger things that he's looking for in the tight end position is like this effort, and because so much of that position after the catch is trying to be like this hard-nosed guy, and he sees that in George Kittle. I'm not sure if he's going to see that in DeGara, but DeGara I think is better than maybe what some are giving him credit for. Last guy, Bryson Hopkins. When we brought on Trevor Sikkema of the Draft Network, this was one of his favorites. A guy from Purdue, a bigger dude, I think 6'5", 245 pounds. The only concern we see from a grading profile standpoint are the drops. The drops have been a legitimate concern. I think over 10% in his career.
Yeah, well over 10%.
Yikes.
And I think it's at 10% every single year of his career he's over. So it's not just like, 1 year he had a bad year. You just know he drops a lot of footballs. It's something you're going to have to accept with him. But to me, he's a little bit more dynamic after the catch than someone like Noah Fant. Noah Fant, great in a straight line. Not going to shake you to save his life, really. But I think Hopkins has a little more shake to him. But, yeah, definitely 8 drops on 69 catchable this past year. 4 on 38 catchable the year before that, and then 7 on 32 catchable back as a sophomore in 2017.
All right, it's time to dive into the offensive line.
I just want to throw out Adam Troutman, the Dayton tight end. We really haven't gotten to him because we don't have the that All-22 just yet, coming soon. But he's a guy that I've heard from pretty much everyone that he looks like he could be the tight end in this class, so we'll have to watch him.
Really? The top tight end in this class? Dayton. Wow. All right. Well, it reminds me of when we were waiting for Goddard's tape. We were waiting for Goddard's tape. I think that's it. There you go. He graded so well against the FCS. I remember we were doing the grades. That's funny. All right, let's go to the offensive line class and move on from the Dayton tight end here. Start with Trey Adams. Guy that's battled injuries. He's got some bad tape on his film. There's some games where you're like, man, I don't know if I could draft this guy on day 2. But there are some tools that you can like. 6'8", 314 pounds, long arms. Is some of the flaws coachable? Or are there things where if you could bring him in and he could be a starting offensive tackle in the NFL?
Yeah, I just don't. The flexibility there is a concern with me. He really, one with all the injuries piling up and that sort of thing, not going to help. But it just any guy with some speed really has given him fits over the years. And so I do think we've seen enough of him that I'm not sure if he goes over there and performs lights out, that he's all of a sudden going to shoot up our board. But I do think he needs to go there and perform like he needs to get himself back, because he was first-round conversation 3 years ago. I mean, if he didn't get hurt, what was that, back in 2017, he would have been in the 2018 draft. So I do think that he definitely needs to have a much, much better performance than we saw from at times this year, or else he might not even be, a second rounder at this point. He might be third, fourth round kind of guy.
Let's go to the Clemson offensive tackle, Tremaine Ankrum. He probably won't play tackle in the NFL, though. This guy's probably getting kicked inside, 6'2", 310 pounds. I think he had some very good tape at Clemson, though. I think he held his own well. I think going to guard at the next level gives this guy a better ceiling in the NFL.
Yeah, and he's one, when you're switching positions, it's always going to be important to see how you do at that new position. So I do think that watching him at guard in the one-on-ones, which I fully assume he's going to play guard, 6'2", he's listed at. So you better have, and he does have long arms for being 6'2", but not long enough to overcome that and still stay at tackle. So he did hold his own pretty well all the way up until the Ohio State game when he went up against Chase Young, but no one holds their own against Chase Young. So I'm not going to hold that one against him too much. Didn't give up multiple pressures in any game besides that Ohio State game all year long.
Moving forward a little bit here, give me Ben Bredeson. I think he's a guy that before the season, even early parts of the season, there were draft scouts and pundits looking at him as one of the better interior offensive linemen in this class. But you've always been a little bit away from that take. You're not super on board with him. I know he's coming from a blue blood school. He's coming from this big program. But when you turn on the tape, you don't really like what you see.
He doesn't out leverage a lot of guys. He gets out leveraged. He's not a line of scrimmage mover by any means in the running game. Now he's very technically sound in pass protection. That showed up this year. Only 9 pressures allowed all season long. But when he went up against a guy in Penn State whose names escape me, who's also Robert Windsor, he just got bull rushed a ton back into the quarterback in that game. 4 pressures allowed against Penn State because just high cut. I don't see the sort of power there to hold up against the bull rush. But he has played really well this past season. Did move up my board a little bit, but I still just don't see the power there that I'm going to covet highly at the guard position. He's probably, to me, more of like a 4th round kind of guy at this point.
Can we jump to Keith Ishmael of San Diego State? Big fan. I was talking to Eric Eager, our data scientist who works on a lot of the college to pro stuff, and he looks at how offensive linemen perform in true pass sets, which take away screens, play action, stuff like that.
The best ever?
Not the best ever.
Okay.
One of the better guys attending the Senior Bowl,
ever.
and I think that's reflected in his PFF pass blocking grade. And going to San Diego State as well, you know, this guy's a trench warrior. And one of the few San Diego State players that is declaring early. I think this guy, I mean, Keith Ishmael, I
haven't watched them because I just, on principle, don't watch San Diego State. They don't have real prospects.
That's
so
where you're
wrong.
wrong.
Just assume that he's probably not that good.
Well,
no,
you're rude.
I'll let you guys know next week what I think of
Keith Ishmael. All right, let's go. I mean, Josh Jones. This guy's probably the crown jewel of this offensive line class attending the Senior Bowl. This guy has a chance to go in the first round, if not maybe even the top half of the first round if he has a good enough Senior Bowl. I mean, he's a mover up boards, very athletic, sloppy from a technique standpoint, but that can get coached up. What you're drafting is a very good athlete at 6'7", 310 pounds.
Yeah, who's already productive is also like a thing I think matters. If you, even when you don't have good technique or, you know, sort of textbook technique, whatever you want to call that, even when you don't, are you getting the job done? Are you finding a way to win? He has, you know, as well as, you know, actually better than any other non-Power 5 tackle we've ever graded in our 6 years doing this. So he has been utterly dominant this past season at Houston. Obviously got injured towards the end of the year, didn't play the last handful of games, but hopefully he's back healthy here at the Senior Bowl because I think he's going to be making himself some dollars, similar to Andre Dillard last year, who went up some boards into the first round.
Let's go to Oregon. Shane Lemieux, interior offensive lineman, 6'4", 316 pounds. Oregon had a very good offensive line this year, and he was one of the bigger parts of it.
I think he's not going to be there. To be
really?
honest,
is he not going there anymore?
I think he got removed from the roster, unfortunately.
That is a huge concern. They're moving up and they're moving people in and out of this roster.
Shane Lemieux, though, I had to crack up on the very first play of the season. You flip on his tape, very first play of the season. He literally, so it's a screen. He literally grabs the defensive tackle from Auburn by the back of the helmet and throws him to the ground. I was just like, offensive line coach sees that, they're probably just like
all ready to go. Speaking of guys that offensive line coaches are going to fall in love with, Logan Stenberg of Kentucky, who's been like voted as like the meanest player in the SEC.
The most
they call him.
player.
I was reading an article, and I do a lot of the background stuff looking at these players for the draft guide, which you can see on the ticker below if you are watching us on YouTube. These are all the profiles that will be in the first edition of the draft guide for 2020 this offseason. But Logan Stenberg, they call him Mr. Nasty because the guy just beats up on dudes. I mean, this guy's a very not mean player. I don't think I think that has a negative connotation, obviously. But between the whistles and sometimes a little bit after it, this guy's a rude dude. And I think you don't hear a lot about an offensive lineman that trash talks, but they interviewed like his teammates and his coaches, and they said the dude talks trash constantly, and I'm all for Logan Stenberg.
He only gave up one pressure all season long. Now, they didn't pass a ton in Kentucky there.
With Lynn Bowden? No.
Lynn Bowden, but only one pressure is still pretty impressive on 285 pass blocking snaps.
I'm sure when Lynn Bowden got back there at quarterback, he's like, dude, I'm going to be run blocking all season long. Here we go.
He was licking his chops, but 14 penalties this past year and 10 the year prior. The dude is a walking liability from a penalty perspective, very much so. But it's because he's not going to let go of you. That's why. It's because you're going to try
to lose.
Try to get off the block, and he's not going to let you.
Yeah.
And then he's going to put you in the turf. I think I said in a previous podcast that he leads the nation in pancakes that just didn't matter whatsoever to the play.
There are going to be a handful of players talking trash at the Senior Bowl. Some of them you'll hear, and I think Stenberg's going to be one of them. And those one-on-ones, I'm ready to hear some trash talk from Stenberg. Last offensive lineman I want to touch on is Prince Tegumanoho of Auburn. I saw him against Clavon Chason, and I think there were a couple of reps that I really liked. There was also a handful where Clavon Chason beat him a bit. I think he's the guy that needs to improve from a technical standpoint significantly. A little bit more raw, though, and I even say compared to Josh Jones. I wouldn't even put him in the same level as Josh Jones.
He's not that level of athlete. He just doesn't have the quick feet. Like he's just is a plotter, and you can win as a plotter in the NFL. You don't have to be. I mean, Mitchell Schwartz, one of the best right tackles, if not the best right tackle in the NFL, had just god awful testing coming out of Oregon that he came out of. You don't have to necessarily be, but you better be pretty darn perfect in the rest of the stuff if you're not. And it's concerning that he took a step back for this past season. Pass blocking grade went from 88.4 in 2018 to 76.3 this year. So I kind of soured on him because I thought, he's the guy who hadn't played offensive line until he stepped foot on campus at Auburn, was a defensive lineman only for 1 year in high school, didn't really play football growing up. And so I don't know. I don't think the athleticism is quite there, and the fact that he's sort of plateaued is also concerning.
That's going to do it for offense on the Senior Bowl. Looking forward to a lot of those guys. I think the receiver group of all of those is where I think there's a ton of opportunity to see some guys rise. And I think there's going to be a huge opportunity to put some exclamation points on evaluations for those guys, like a Van Jefferson, Denzel Mims, Kalijah Lipscomb. The exclamation point won't be good, but it'll be interesting to see what he does at the Senior Bowl. I think this wide receiver group is what I'm really most looking forward to when we do get down to Mobile. But that's going to do it for offense. Defensively, though, this defensive line, there's some names in this defensive line group that I kind of like. Bradley I apologize. I'm dropping on him a little bit. I think I'm dropping on Anai a little bit. I think the athleticism scares me. I mean, the athleticism scares me with Anai. And when you lack that explosive ability and that explosive first step, and I know he was injured late in the season, but I mean, there's some things like very technically sound. You like his hands, you like how he can win, but when you don't have that like level of athlete, it's hard to project like a good ceiling for this guy at the next level.
Yeah, so he has though beaten up Trey Adams, Washington, beat up Austin Jackson from USC. Like these are top tackles that you don't always face a lot of top tackles. He did fairly well against those guys, and also had a couple reps against Penny Sewell. That were good as well in the Oregon game. Obviously didn't get the better of Penny Sewell. No one did this year, but he did a couple of reps in that game. So I do think when you look at that, it's a little more encouraging. The fact that he's done it against NFL talent, and obviously he'll get his chance to do it at the Senior Bowl as well to prove that. But I do think he could have himself a nice week.
I'm interested to see. I think he has the opportunity to rise. I mean, because the one-on-ones, if you can't win in the one-on-ones and you start to see that his low-level athleticism show up there, that's going to be a huge problem.
He also never came off the field at Utah. He had over 400 pass rushing snaps, which is like you're close to the FBS lead if you're over 400 pass rushing snaps. He had all the last 3 seasons. Like he was just on the field every single play for the Utah defense, which Chase Young was not even close to 400 pass rushing snaps this year. Like that is tough to do at any levels to just stay on the field like that.
Yeah, going to have to watch Bradley and I at the Senior Bowl. Let's go to Raekwon Davis. He was a name that I was expecting to be high in mock drafts this time, but I think people are coming around on Raekwon Davis, seeing that he doesn't have that potential to be an elite pass rusher at the next level.
I always get scared about guys who not necessarily who plateau in college, and we have almost the exact same grade on Raekwon Davis each of the last 3 seasons. Like with how big the leap is from college to the NFL, and just we've seen it all the time. We talk about on the rookies. When we talk about the rookies, it's just that there's so few of these guys are good. Like when they hit the NFL, and so how much you do have to still improve once you get there. If you have, and so Raekwon Davis, 84.9 overall grade in 2017, 81.9 2018, 81.2 this past year, and pretty much like identical in terms of good run defense grades, pretty rank average pass rushing grades. That's concerning. Like that's not the profile of a first rounder. That's not even the profile of a second rounder in our opinion. That's probably a 3rd, 4th round type of guy with just how he's plateaued as a football player.
All right, next guy, we're going back to Utah, moving from Bradley and I to Leki Fotu, an absolute motorhome in the middle of a defensive line, future NFL defensive line, 6'5", over 330 pounds. Won't be a guy that Aaron Donald-esque beats his block early in the snap to pressure the quarterback, but he can push the pocket. He showed that in some games this year. But one thing he's going to do at the next level and very capable of doing is two-gapping in the run game and being a part of a defense like what we've talked about with the Baltimore Ravens, who are trying to put defensive linemen on the football field that can play the run to that level and free linebackers up. And Leki Fotu, I think you've highlighted him as a riser, and you'll bring that up later. But Leki Fotu is legit in terms of what he can do. He does it well. Yeah,
I think he can offer something as a pass rusher. They really didn't ask him to do that this past year. They didn't have him in situations that I thought. I think he has a good enough get off. If you just ask him to sort of penetrate, he can get in the backfield pretty much anytime he wants. He wasn't asked to penetrate at Utah's past year, really asked to reblocks, stand up, play the run first, and then rush the passer, and so only had 19 pressures. But back in 2018, he had a little more freedom, had 35 pressures that season, had a much better year overall. So I do think that there exists some capability for him to be this nose tackle who can also affect the passing game. He has the traits to do so. Want to see it happen down in Mobile.
All right, Neville Gallimore of Oklahoma. I really like Neville Gallimore. I think he's a guy with a good first step, a guy that can win as a pass rusher early. Where are you at with him?
Oh, yeah, he's one of the most athletic defense tackles in this class. You saw him make plays from the nose tackle position, sideline to sideline, I just worry about so lost 30 pounds over the course of the offseason. I'm not sure he's a nose tackle anymore. I just don't. I'm not sure he can hold up to the rigors of
which is
playing
fine though. I mean, if you want to play him
yeah.
at 3 technique.
But I just think he's very unpolished as a pass rusher still kind of going through the motions or sort of, the processing of when to do X move in what situation. It just seems a tick slow. And he has all the athleticism in the world. Will test out like a freak at the combine, but I still think he's kind of putting it all together. So to me, he's not in the first-round mix for me at that point. That's more of a day 2 guy.
Moving to the 2 Florida edge defenders, Jabari Zuniga and Jonathan Grenard, who is higher on your board right now between the 2?
I'm not super high on either, to be honest. I think
Grenard came out of the gate on fire, but it was because he was going against a bad competition. Same with Jabari Zuniga. Both of them have kind of battled injuries a little bit, but Grenard was the guy I was higher on before, and now both of them have kind of fallen down a little bit.
I think both are kind of day 3 guys, in my opinion. Zuniga, people are going to be higher on him just because the athleticism pops off the tape. The first step is great. His agility is great. His pass rushing moves are just not good whatsoever. He has disappeared against any sort of real offensive lineman because he just doesn't have a lot of pass rushing moves and doesn't employ them well. He has just been very limited in that regard over the course of his career. Obviously, he has a chance to prove himself here. I just don't think he will. I think he is one of those guys who gets kind of shut down in a situation like this.
Let's go to Khalid Kareem of Notre Dame. Not on the same level as Julian Okwara, not really close to him. But I think Khalid Kareem, though, could have an opportunity at the Senior Bowl to rise up a bit.
I think he's a very good bull rusher. One of the best bull rushers that's going to be at the Senior Bowl. Him and actually Alton Robinson are both very similar players. And I'd put Kareem a little bit above Alton Robinson on my board. I think he's just a very technically sound, one of those guys to where, I don't want to talk about his ceiling being limited, but I just think you'll throw him in and you're not going to be upset with a guy like that playing off the edge for you. He's never going to be a liability. He's going to look the part and be able to do basically any alignment you ask him to do, but I just don't think he's going to be a special sort of pass rusher.
Probably one of the better players along the defensive line that'll be at the Senior Bowl. Javon Kinlaw is also going to be there. He's going to win some one-on-ones.
He's actually goes there and plays because to me, he's put enough on tape and he has the traits to where this dude should be a top 10 to 15 pick. Like he just should be at this point. He has played more than enough quality football to where you don't need to risk your health then at that point. Going and beating up against a couple FCS guards or whatever isn't going to raise your draft stock that much.
Why do you have to call them all FCS guards? There's some good guards at the Senior Bowl. That was a little rude.
Okay, yeah, that was rude. Some D3 guards. There's a D3 guard there.
Jeez, you're just being aggressive right now. All right, last guy on the defensive line group here, Robert Windsor of Penn State. You said there are some plays with Windsor that he's won pretty impressively.
Yes. So as a pass rusher, he's one of the better bull rushers on the interior in the nation, which is kind of surprising because he's only 285 pounds listed at. He's not a big dude whatsoever. Very flexible, very active hands, but man, he can't play the run in the interior in the NFL. He is going to get his ass handed to him against double teams and against one-on-ones. He, to me, has a very legit chance of doing the Anthony Zettel, which not to the same school scout someone, but like of actually moving from 3-tech where he usually plays at Penn State to the edge a little more, maybe like a 3-4 defensive end, maybe like a Malik Jackson role where you're over the tackle more so than you are on the interior, just because he will not be good against the run. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have the juice in the pants to hold up against double teams. So I do think that he could go to town though in the one-on-ones as a pass rusher.
All right, time for linebackers. Let's go to it. Zach Bond is a guy that I'm seeing right now, even mocked at the back end of the first round, top of the second round. People are really excited about his versatility. He played a lot of edge defender at Wisconsin. I think the comp to Joe Schobert is very, very easy. Not the, again, same school scout, but they do a lot of the same things.
Not same race. So
yeah,
that cancels it.
I think that does cancel it. But with Zach Bond, he played a ton of edge defender, and I thought he had some very nice, impressive pass rush wins.
Yeah.
And playing off-ball linebacker, I think he does have enough athleticism to play coverage, 6'3", 235 pounds. If he shows up at that weight, even closer to 230, he's playing off-ball linebacker at the next level.
Yes.
And I think that is the position in a versatile role where he can have success.
Well, that's where I want to. He actually. So when Joe Schobert went to the combine, I'm like, I need to see him actually rush the passer more to see what he can do there. and they didn't actually. They had him as an off ball and only let him rush like 4 or 5 times in the one-on-ones. Bond, I need to see him in the one-on-ones in coverage because I do think he's very much an off-ball linebacker, has all the skill to be a very good one. Just want to glean a little more information there. See him against the running backs and the tight ends in the one-on-ones.
Moving forward to Francis Bernard, graded really well in coverage. He's got 3 years of very good grading as a coverage linebacker. I think the concern that pops up with him is I think he's almost 25 years old.
Damn it.
He had like a 2-year mission trip, I think, before when he was with BYU and then transferred to Utah. Older prospect. I think he looks like a grown man on the field. I think there's reasons to like his game, but how much is that age a concern for you?
Yeah, age is always a concern, and that's why you got to check with Utah guys, BYU guys. He was class of 2013. Coming out as a prospect, so I was class of 2012 in college. So he's very on the old end here in terms of prospects. But I do think I go back and forth on how much that necessarily matters. It definitely does matter, though. You have 2 guys, one's 25, one's 21. There's a big difference that you're going to drop that 25-year-old well down your board just because. I mean, that's a grown man. There's like the improvement you can make physically at that point is just very limited. So the fact of the matter is he's been very good, though, also over the course of his career at Utah. So I think it's a little overblown. Probably get the 3rd round, 4th round type of guy on the board here.
All right, I want to jump to Carter Coughlin. Before the season, had an opportunity to talk to him. He said his goals were, I want to be the best pass rusher in college football. Didn't quite reach that, maybe not close to it, but Carter Coughlin has graded well as a pass rusher in the past. 6'3", 236 pounds, another guy that, you show up at that weight, you're not playing edge defender at the next level. You're going to have to play off-ball linebacker. Where do you see Carter Coughlin, one, playing at the next level, and where do you see his draft stock currently?
Coughlin, it's going to be a completely new – he dropped in coverage 48 times this year. Like we'd have no clue what he's going to be like in coverage. He is a good athlete though, but he had very limited length as well off the edge. I just don't think he's going to show up with long arms. And so if you don't have length and you're undersized, that's very much a 1-2 punch that's going to move you to off-ball linebacker. So I honestly don't know what to expect from him as an off-ball linebacker. I liked his movement skills. But
smart player, very athletic family. I believe both of his parents went to Minnesota. I think his mom played tennis and his dad played football. What?
You dropped the accent there, the Minnesota.
Did I drop a little accent? Yeah. I think I've been hanging out with Eric too much. Anyway, but it's very athletic family. I think he is going to test well for his size. So I think he's going to be a project, though. I mean, if you're going to try and move him and play him 200 coverage snaps a year in the NFL, he's got a lot to learn, a lot of experience to gain. Let's go to Jordan Brooks of Texas Tech. 6'1", 245 pounds, a little bit of a bigger guy compared to some of these others. Played very well against the run this year. Improved his overall grade every year of his career at Texas Tech, all the way up to an 89.6 overall grade in 2019. Did not play well in coverage, though, this past year. He did, however, rush the passer at a good volume. 117 total pass rushes, 44 total pressures on those pass rushing snaps. I think that's impressive. Blitzing guy. Where are you at with Brooks?
Yeah, he's kind of a throwback. He's a bully at the linebacker position. Not much in terms of coverage prowess, not that kind of athlete, but stuff that's in front of him. He is one of the few linebackers in this class to where you don't have that, you got to keep him clean sort of thing. If he's going to take on a block, he's going to win against offensive linemen in the run game. He has that skill set, and like you mentioned, very good as a blitzer as well. So I think teams that use their sort of the Jelani Tavai mold that we saw last year and that the Detroit Lions coveted, I think that's what Jordan Brooks brings to the table.
I also want to talk the Penn State linebacker, Cam Brown. He's where are you at with him? I think there's some people who kind of like where he's going and a little bit of a skinnier guy, but I think Cam Brown is interesting.
Have not watched him yet.
Haven't watched him yet? Haven't watched Cam Brown? All right, we'll have to dive into him. But let's go ahead and go to the App State. I was talking to his agent, Akeem Davis Gaither's agent, said this guy's a freak. Yeah. Very athletic, special guy that kind of is lost in the small school status. 6'2", 215 pounds. I mean, I really liked some of the tape I watched. I think he's kind of fitting the role of a modern day NFL linebacker. I mean, in terms of what he can do athletically, I think is a potential riser at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. He's very athletic, very explosive. He played a role at Appalachian State that was similar to what Zach Bond did in that he was rushing the passer a lot, playing off the edge, being that overhang player in the Appalachian State defense. But he is I mean, he's only 215 pounds, but he's how you should move if you're 215 pounds. He's probably going to run in the 4.5s. You know, he is very athletic at that weight. So
put athletes on the football field.
Yeah,
those off-ball linebackers, those types of guys that can play in the box, that are athletic and are at that size, I think have value.
I'm excited to see what he does because they would spot drop him a lot in that defense. He's not man coverage on guys, so I'm excited to see how he does in man.
Some are very big fans of Malik Harrison of Ohio State. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl, 6'3", 251 pounds, kind of fits that older mold of a bigger linebacker. You say you're not a fan, though.
Not a fan. I just don't see the range in coverage. He's very good at stuff that's in front of him. He's similar to Jordan Brooks. I don't think he's nearly as explosive, as powerful as Jordan Brooks, but like he is a downhill thumper of a linebacker. He's going to, annihilate you if you're running a crosser in front of him. That's who he is. But if you're asking him to go backwards in coverage, anything behind him, it was an issue for him at Ohio State. And oftentimes they would put him as either the spy or the whole player when they played man.
It's funny, the two linebackers we bring up that are actually like over 240 pounds are guys that we're kind of like moving away from because of these thumper style that like, yeah, he's a bully, but what kind of value does that have?
Evan Weaver too, baby.
Yeah, we'll get to him later. I like Evan Weaver for reasons outside of what he can do in the NFL, but he's an interesting guy. Going to Kalike Hudson, this guy, I'm pretty sure in 2017 or 2016 earned a very high, he earned like one of the few 99.9 overall grade single game grades that we've had, but he has not performed well beyond that. His grade has dropped every year since 2017. 6 foot, 220 pound player, kind of an interesting frame. I don't know where he's going to play in the next level, and I don't see where he fits. So
to me, Hudson's one of those guys to where you're going to try to make him a linebacker, kind of like a Dayon Buchanan, where he played kind of slot for Michigan's defense at 220 pounds. You're going to try to make him a linebacker at the next level, but he really just doesn't have the physicality for that position. Like, he is not going to play the run well at linebacker whatsoever. And I didn't necessarily see a great feel for him in coverage. I think he's going to test out athletically. I think he's all right. I don't think I think he's more of a box safety than an actual linebacker at the next level.
Okay. All right, next guy. This is one of my favorite backstories at the Senior Bowl, even in this class. Davion Taylor of Colorado, 6'2", 225, a smaller guy that's very, very athletic. I will say that he's a former track and field star. He even played track at Colorado and not broke some records, but had some good times there. Davion Taylor in high school only played one football game. The reason was his mother was a Seventh-day Adventist, where they observed the seventh day as something where you can't play sports. So he couldn't play sports from Friday night to Sunday morning. And for that reason, he practiced all week with his high school team. And then when it came to Friday to play the game, he couldn't play. Yeah. Like he had to walk home. And there were stories where he's like under his bed crying because he wants to play with his team. It's like really sad, honestly, when you read into his background. But there was one game, first game of his senior season, where the sun didn't set till 8:30. So she said you could play the first two quarters. He ends up playing the full game. They work that out. He plays that. He sends that to every school he can. Obviously, he doesn't get a ton of offers.
Some hell of a tape.
I know. It should have been. Well, apparently, I mean, you listen to the coaches sound a little hyperbolic. It was the best player on the field, whatever it was. But he got to play in that game, and then he ends up going to junior college. Plays really well there. Colorado picks him up, and he's had some good tape at Colorado. He's an athletic player. I see him as a potential riser at the Senior Bowl. Just he needs more reps. He needs more experience. This guy is very, very raw in terms of the level of competition he's played against and the experience he has. Yeah,
and he's another guy who played a lot of that overhang sort of linebacker position where you're out in the slot and then you're coming off to the edge. So those guys, a lot of times you're seeing them just kind of spot drop and not do normal linebacker things. It's not really a role that exists in the NFL. So for guys that are playing that role, it's very important to see how they look actually playing a linebacker position that you'll play.
Mm-hmm. All right, two linebackers left that I want to discuss. Evan Weaver's first. One, because I love your comp. The Evan Weaver comp to Scooby Wright is fantastic. Evan Weaver is like this hard-nosed, traditional guy, but maybe doesn't have the frame to be a thumper at the next level. But he plays with his hair on fire. He's easy to like. I mean, we played in an earlier podcast, his post-game press conference after Cal, I think, lost a bad game to Arizona State or whatever, and he's just like really, really red in the face and upset. This guy's like a defensive coordinator player's dream in terms of some guys that like just care about football, but I don't see him having like a significant role at the next level to where he offers value in coverage a ton. I think you'd have to get creative with his role. However, special teams, this guy could be a special teams god at the next level.
No, it's an ace. Every guy's a special teams ace.
Maven. I like Maven too. Special teams Maven.
He's special teams ace / Maven. That's his role. That is what Evan Weaver's going to be. He will make a roster. He'll probably stick around for 8 to 10 years, and he will be your top special teamer.
Which isn't terrible.
Yeah. That's with the fifth.
Yeah. All right, Logan Wilson of Wyoming is the last guy we want to bring up. I know you like Logan Wilson. Some of the tape he's got. 6'2", 250 pounds, a little bit
doesn't
of a big,
move like he's 250.
Yeah, which is always good to see because the guys that move well are usually closer to 230 than they are to 250. And with Logan Wilson, how well he moves, I mean that's a positive sign.
And good blitzer at that size, can blow up a running back with ease. And made plays in coverage over the course of his career. 9 combined picks and pass breakups this past season. I think that's the most of any guy that's going to be at the Senior Bowl. So that's always encouraging when you see a guy like that. And then obviously level of competition is a pretty big concern with him. So facing some real competition could move up some boards.
All right, now down to the defensive backs. Great preview here. We're going into Damon Arnett of Ohio State. I like a lot of people like this guy.
Mm-hmm. I'm not as high. But he did play all year with a cast on one of his arms and had his best year of his career. I always that does limit you. Like if you have a cast on and you're still playing at a very high level, I'm always curious to see what it would look like if you didn't have a cast on. So he had 44.6% completion percentage allowed this year, only 306 yards, and that's through the championship, conference championship, and a playoff game. 14 games in the season, only 306 yards. Pretty good numbers. He definitely moved up boards with his play this year because the year prior was not nearly as good.
All right, I think this guy is going to be very fun to watch at the Senior Bowl. It's the next defensive back. Isang Bassi of Wake Forest. He's barely hitting 5'9", 5'8" in the 6th or whatever it's going to be. 182 pounds. Obviously playing in the slot in the next level if he's playing anywhere.
He could play safety.
You think?
I think he could just play the safety position. I mean, I think at Wake Forest he was an outside corner. The majority of his career, had great ball skills. You go back to 2017, he broke up 17 passes and had 3 picks. I love his instincts in zone coverage. But yeah, to me, probably a safety or a slot cornerback. I think you can play either one of those and offer value to the defense. He actually made our last top 100, and I think he'll stick in the top 100.
I tend to gravitate to the players that are smaller, that have those instincts that you think can play, that are maybe playing out of position at the college level because they're playing outside corner, but if you moved them into a slot corner role, they could have success. I think Bassi, again, another guy that I think now with his first opportunity to play away from outside corner, which you probably will, I think you'll see an opportunity where he could play in the NFL and therefore rise a bit, knowing that he can play that position with his instincts and with his skill set. Julian Blackman of Utah, man, there's so many Utah guys going to be there.
I know.
It's going to be a family affair for Utah. Julian Blackman, I think, okay, where are you at with him? So there's Julian Blackman and there's Terrell Burgess. Yeah. Terrell Burgess is more of the boxy guy who plays in the slot, and Julian Blackman played more free safety. Got injured late in the year. Between the two, who are you higher on?
So Blackman was a cornerback heading into this year, switched to safety, and then started at safety this year. I like his ball skills. You saw that coverage ability from corner translates safety as well, but I think Burgess, I love what he brings as a slot and box option. He's very physical, in press coverage, legit ability. Can be a weapon in that regard. And I also liked what, when he was back as a more traditional safety, I like what I saw from him as well. So I'll go Burgess ahead of Blackman, but both are fairly good safety prospects.
I'm with you on Burgess. I think what he's did in the slot this year really impressed me because I think, and I wrote about this recently, is like the slot cornerback position starts in today's NFL, and finding a guy that can have an impact play from the slot like Terrell Burgess, I think he can have impact plays from the slot.
Nickelbacker, like he's nickelbacker or dimebacker, like he can play in the box like straight up as well too.
Antoine Brooks Jr. of Maryland. I haven't watched a ton of him. I think I've watched a couple of his high-end, a couple of his positively graded plays, but didn't come away super impressed with Antoine Brooks. I don't know if you watched more on him.
He's very good around the line of scrimmage. Probably the best, if you want to call him a cornerback. He played slot cornerback. Probably the best slot cornerback I've seen playing the run. This of anyone, in college football. He is just not afraid to take on blocks, not afraid to do any of that sort of stuff. But, man, in coverage, he's not great. Like, the thing that probably matters the most, he's a little stiff. don't see him turning and running with guys down the football field and doing that well. And it didn't happen well when he was asked to do it this past year at Maryland. So I'm not sure what you do with that. It's just a tough skill set to project when he's that good against the run and that physical of a player, but only 5'11", 210. Like, that's a weird size to be like, okay, now play linebacker. I'm not sure that's necessarily going to happen.
Let's get to one of our favorites in this class, guy that we've constantly mocked at the back end of the first round, Ashton Davis of Cal.
Yes, sir.
Speedy dude, great range. He is going to have a week at the Senior Bowl because there are a lot of people that don't watch Pac-12. There are a lot of people that probably haven't seen Ashton Davis. He's going to play a ton of different things. I think he's going to really have some wow plays in Mobile.
Yeah, I think if you put him on man coverage against this tight end group that was pretty weak tight end group, I think he'll look pretty darn good. I think he's going to have himself, like you said, a week of practices. He's one of the highest graded players we have there.
Probably the best defensive back at the Senior Bowl is going to be Christian Fulton of LSU. I remember in the beginning you said you don't expect him to play.
I don't think he plays a snap there, man.
Really?
It'd be crazy to me for him to. He's put so much on. Another guy, when you've put so much on tape and you've played in the SEC and then you've played in the playoff, against Oklahoma, against now Clemson and the receivers he faced, he's got nothing more to prove, man.
I'd be interested to see if his name stays on the accepted invites list as we get closer to the Senior Bowl, because I agree with you that he's done enough on tape to where a point where going to the Senior Bowl I don't think pushes his draft stock any higher. He only has opportunity to maybe get caught on a couple one-on-ones against Elijah Lipscomb, maybe, I don't know, but not him. But I agree with you that he's put a lot on tape. All right, Alohi Gilman of Notre Dame. Not the best athlete, I would say. Maybe does that put that lightly?
That's very fair. He's not a great athlete. We've talked about he's a box safety to me, and he's fairly good in that role. But if you're asking him to play deep at all, he doesn't have the change of direction ability or the speed that I'd feel safe about him, roaming the back half of my D. Oh, Jesus.
What did you just say? Roaming the back.
Move on to Jeff Gladney.
Okay, Jeff Gladney.
Cornerback.
Jeff Gladney is awesome. I really like Jeff Gladney. In zone coverage, very instinctual, jumps on ball. I mean, he's an aggressive player. Gladney is one of my favorite cornerbacks in this class. I really do like Gladney.
The biggest thing, just like keeping me off being like Jeff Gladney in the first round, is he's just so skinny, man.
Yeah,
like,
he is skinny.
Fast as shit.
So is Cameron Dantzler, though. I mean, Cameron Dantzler also very skinny.
Cameron Dantzler's super long, though, as well. Like, Gladney is just very skinny and not overly long, which, like, guys who are in the 180 range at 6 foot you get sunned by you're trying to go out there and guard Brandon Marshall. That's an outdated comp. You're trying to go out there and guard Julio Jones on the outside at that size. He'll just slap you around. You just don't have any recourse.
But I don't expect him to go to the next level and play a ton of man coverage concepts, though. I do like him more in zone, and I think that protects him a little bit. I do agree. he needs to put on weight.
Play man, though.
You got
man in the NFL.
You got to be able to play man in the NFL. You don't want someone who can't play man on the back half of your D at any point. That's kind of where I sit with him.
I don't want any guy on the back half of my D.
Darnay Holmes of UCLA, a crazy athlete. If anyone, this guy is so special with his change of direction, very fast. There were plays on tape where you're like really, really impressed with what this guy can do from a recovery standpoint. But he had to recover a lot too. When
he bites on double moves, it looks great.
Oh man, it looks great. But Darnay is very aggressive. I see him talking a lot of trash. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to him, but he looks like a guy that talks trash, but just based off how he plays. I think Darnay in these one-on-ones has an opportunity to get roasted on some of those 8-second double moves, because those are difficult to cover, and I think he's a guy that'll jump on some of those things. But I also think there are going to be coaches and draft pundits and scouts and all those things that like him a lot because of his athletic ability.
I swear he just should have come back to school. Like, one more year, he could have played his way into the first-round conversation if he grad transfers. So he obviously graduated if he's at the Senior Bowl. Grad transfers to an LSU, to Ohio State somewhere, and all of a sudden, gets a little bit of coaching when he go to LSU and looks better next year. I think he could have been in the first-round mix, but he still has the traits that you'd bet on, and he still has the high-level reps. It's just the consistency aspect. Yeah. Hasn't been there. And he can prove
but
that.
But I think part of consistency at the cornerback position, I think, can be coached. Especially when it's like a lot of it's mental. Because he has the traits, and like you said, I'm willing to bet on the traits. Is he coachable? I think that goes back to the personality and talking to him about, hey, this is where you need to get better. Can we hone this skill set in? Because we see your ceiling is something insane at the next level. We just need to try and hone it in. He's also smaller. He's a smaller player, like shorter guy that I think, which will be tough. Troy Pride Jr., I think he has a good track track background. He had very good 2018 tape.
Yeah.
I haven't had a ton of opportunity to watch his 2019 tape, though.
I mean, it's good tape. Again, he only allowed 32 catches, 337 yards. And the thing with him is I think he could have a big Senior Bowl, and he's on my list of potential risers here because in terms of guys that can just stick in man coverage with opposing wide receivers, he's as good as any cornerback in this at the Senior Bowl. He has that ability, very fluid athlete,
he doesn't get
fast, doesn't get beaten like torched. He gets smoked at the catch point. He is the worst cornerback also there.
That track background.
Being able to play the catch point. It seemed like every single one of his catches this season that was down the football field, he was there, but then we talked about it with A.J. Terrell. When your hand's at the catch point and you're playing it correctly, sometimes it doesn't matter whether it gets caught or not. He's not playing it correctly. When he gets a back shoulder fade on him or, a post that he is in good position for, he's not playing them well. He does not know how to locate the ball or locate a receiver's hands. So that, to me, something that needs to be improved upon, but you can't coach his athleticism.
Nope, I agree. Let's go to. We have a list. You have a big list of risers here, or potential risers that we could see at the Senior Bowl. Give me some of your bigger names.
I'll just run through them. I think Justin Herbert, very potential riser at the quarterback position for the general public, not for necessarily us. I think he's just going to look good there. Brandon Ayuk, the Arizona State wide receiver, I think he's going to explode there.
He's going to finally run some routes where you could see if he could separate on this different type of route.
Juwan Jennings, I think the Tennessee wide receiver. That's just because I love Juwan Jennings and Jared Pinkney. Both those guys, I think, are very good route runners. Have that sort of shake that you need to be a good route runner. Josh Jones, that one's obvious, the Houston tackle. I think he has himself a week. I think Leki Fotu shows us something as a pass rusher there when he actually gets a chance to, get off, know he's rushing the passer. I think he can throw some of those guards around. Zach Bond, I just think he is a very special athlete. He will show as such in the coverage drills. Same with Akeem Davis-Gaither. I think they're the two most athletic linebackers in attendance there. Then Jeff Gladney and Troy Pride. I think they have the speed, the man coverage ability to look good when a lot of these guys might not necessarily against this receiving class.
I'm with you on two of those. I mean, a lot of those guys will probably rise, but two of them that I really wanted to call out were Akeem Davis-Gaither and Jeff Gladney, and I have a handful here too. Michael Pittman Jr. I think has a week at the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to be very good. I think Antonio Gibson too. I mean, I think he's going to do a lot of different things at the Senior Bowl. People are going to realize the athlete he is playing for Memphis. Not a lot of people watch Memphis tape this year, but he did so many different things at Memphis. Seeing what he does at running back, what he does at receiver, I think there are going to be some guys falling in love. James Prochet, I think, impresses people with his route running and his ball skills. Bryson Hopkins, I think could have. If he doesn't drop a pass at the Senior Bowl, he's going to probably be one of the best tight end performers at the Senior Bowl because he is that good. And the last guy, Ashton Davis. Not enough people have watched him critically. People see him as this former track star that can't hit. He's physical. He's rangy, got all the tools that you want. I think Ashton Davis is another guy like, oh, man, this guy is a first-round type of player.
Yeah, I can get on board with those. That's
going to be it for the Risers. That's going to be the Senior Bowl preview. We will be live from Mobile. No, we won't be recording live, but we will be in Mobile, recording podcasts, doing content, a ton of stuff for the Senior Bowl. So make sure you're following next week. But that's going to do it for the preview podcast. This has been Austin Gayle and Mike Renner on 2-for-1 Drafts.